for I think a couple of years now. Stuart has been just a phenomenal mentor for me, super helpful in understanding what's important from a career standpoint, but also just from a personal standpoint.
No, and just helping me really understand what's important to keep in mind for my career, my life, and just as a human being, what's important. And one of those key things that are really important connects to Water Emissaries, and that's what are you going to do about your passions and why you're here. And I think what connects all the people on this call is that we're all passionate about this planet and see this as a deeper issue than something that's just political or some business opportunity or career opportunity. It's deeper than that. It's our home. It's our shared. It's the only home we have. And so one of the paramount tenets of that is water. And so that is really what attracted me to Stuart's mission. And when I met with Stuart for the first time, instantly gravitated me towards him was, what are we going to do about this? And what can you do about this now as a 22-year-old college student in UCLA? So yeah, anyway, I should give a background just super quickly. I just this last year graduated from UCLA as a political science and entrepreneurship major. I went to West Valley Community College in the South Bay area. And during that time, I began to understand how important it was to get involved in my community. And one major thing that drove me to Water Emissaries was I had the chance to go to Salzburg, Austria on this summer scholarship program, study abroad program, my freshman year of college. And it was this program called the Global Citizenship Alliance Seminar. And the main thing that they taught there was for us to think of ourselves as human beings before we think of ourselves as in terms of tribe or nation or religion, putting up these barriers before we see each other for who we are, just fellow human beings, and using that knowledge to act on global issues, a lot of which are related to water and sustainability. So I had a really just transformative experience in Salzburg, Austria. I was at the Schloss Palace in Salzburg, where they shot The Sound of Music, for anyone that's seen that movie. And I came back all fired up, and I wanted to do something with that knowledge of, I'm a human being, and people all around the world are in constant need of help, including us. And so anyway, long story short, I started this student-led group where we did student-led service learning projects. We went all across the globe, Cambodia, Puerto Rico, Nepal, Peru, I believe is coming up. It was this organization where students themselves created these projects based on a real tangible need in a community across the globe, and worked directly with communities across the globe through various channels to come up with solutions and formulate projects, and then raise money and actually send those group of students that put their asses on the line, did the hard work, send them to these locations to not only provide a helping hand in the communities, but to learn from those communities firsthand, hear the stories of struggle or of perseverance, that sort of thing, and connect the globe more culturally. And so I had that passion for tangible hands-on projects, and Stuart shared that same passion. So when he told me his story, I told him mine, and he told me about this vision that he had to start this student-led group that is purely focused on building tangible progress, tangible projects to make a real impact on the globe, but all focused on water and sustainability. And I gravitated right towards that. That's one of the main projects that I did in Cambodia had to do with water storage and revitalizing the economy there using water, as a source of to help with agriculture over there. So anyway, long story short, I was very passionate about what Stuart had to say and how he really firmly believed that students can make a real impact. And so with Water Emissaries, we started this group, and took a little while to find what really was going to be impactful. And a lot of that had to do with action-based initiatives eventually, raising awareness, and providing professional opportunities for people that were passionate about sustainability, but didn't really know how or where to place that passion. So that's what, the original Water Emissaries vision was all about. But something that's great, and this is the last thing I'll say, and I could do questions or keep talking, that sort of thing. But the great thing about this project is that there have been, the people that joined were willing to change and were willing to evolve to see what will really be impactful. If we tried something out, it just wasn't cutting it, then we pivoted. And I think that that's something that Madeline and her team has been able to do as well since the transition. When I got a job at Silicon Valley Bank and people went in their own directions, the team kept evolving and growing. And I think that's really special. So yeah, now I'm at Silicon Valley Bank. I'm doing startup venture debt lending and banking, and I really love it. Something that ties my story to what I'm doing now is that I'm working with startups, which I love. A lot of them are in the sustainability space. So providing them sort of the crucial finance and liquidity so that they can grow and change the world eventually. So I hold on to that sustainability focus, and I really hope to see what else everyone is doing with Water Emissaries and with making a tangible impact. That's what I'm all about. So I'd love to answer any questions or open up the discussion, that sort of thing. Just let me know.
Thank you, Cade. I'm just want to remind us that for part of this event today, we're doing is to share not just your story, but ways that you can help advise the emissaries that are currently here and looking at their future careers. I also want to talk about World Toilet Day and make sure, because we're going to do an activation for that again this year. And we're looking to create some new ideas. So at some point during the conversation, let's make sure we make time for that as well.
Yeah, we're going to sort of go into, I guess, going back over like design thinking with that as sort of a transitional thing. But Cade, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about like how your experience with Water Emissaries specifically prepared you as you've gone into your career, and then also about sort of the original the activation that you guys did last year for World Toilet Day, sort of how that came about, just so that people can have sort of a frame of reference for it and a little more information.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with how Water Emissaries prepared me for my career. I mean, so starting out, we had this vision or this idea, and sort of came from Stuart, and we brainstormed with Stuart on what this could look like in reality. But it was still just an idea, and some crucial career building skills. One of the most important things is learning how to execute and do something about this idea that you may have. Otherwise, it's still an idea. So we had to just kind of buckle down and make decisions on what the strategy was going to be, what direction this organization would be or would go in. And, we had to brainstorm and ideate and then execute. And so we decided to go in the direction of action-based initiatives of education and spreading awareness, and then sort of project-based initiatives or activations, like you said, like World Toilet Day. We felt those were the best ways that we as students that were dispersed all across the country during a pandemic, that was how we can make an impact. So yeah, that's what we did. One event that we started out with was World Toilet Day, and I think it will get better every single year. But we learned that we first just sort of had to educate ourselves about, what is this issue? We take it for granted so much in the United States and in wealthier nations, access to toilets and the water infrastructure that's built around that. But first, we had to educate ourselves. How deep is this problem and how widespread is this problem? Once we were able to do that, we really saw the sort of facts speak for themselves. And then alongside that, we were able to connect with Stuart's partner organization. I think they're called Thrive Networks. Correct me if I'm wrong. but they are a global organization that really tapped into a lot of the problems having to do with toilets across the world, or lack of access to toilet infrastructure across the world. So we were able to get personalized personal stories of adversity, of struggle, of just the situation all around the world of how people don't have access to toilets and what secondary and ongoing effects that has on certain cultures or societies or communities, I should say, around the world. So using personal stories from organizations like Thrive, and using data-driven, I guess a data-driven approach, we were able to produce blogs and newsletters, social media posts, just to spread the word, because a lot of people understand issues around maybe climate change, or even ocean conservation, that sort of thing, pollution, but they may not have really any idea about the issue of access to toilets or clean water, that sort of thing. So we made sure to spread the word about that. That was the best we could do at the time, was spreading awareness and educating people in our networks. So we really just dispersed that information throughout our networks. It was a test run of an activation, and we learned a lot. And I think the most important thing around that activation, and sort of more broadly, that I learned that could help me for my career from this experience, was that it takes preparation. Even something that you think everything that you need to do for this event, it takes way more preparation, like 2x. Like there's so many problems that come up, just like in any homework assignment, that sort of thing, or big research paper, that sort of thing. Secondary problems come up, and you have to adapt, you have to pivot, and you have to be willing to ideate and challenge your perspective on where this thing can go. And so we had to do that with the World Toilet Day event. And honestly, for all the engagements that we had, and sort of I think they call it user impressions on social media, I felt it was a success, just spreading the word. I think that lays the groundwork within our networks for even more impactful World Toilet Day event for the upcoming year, which I look forward to hearing about from the Water Emissaries. The last thing I'll say is that in general, I work with startups a lot now, and with that, they may have a more sophisticated infrastructure and management team and matrix or organizational matrix than we had in the Water Emissaries team, but they still identify the same problems. And so, using the context of being on a very young college, group of college kids on that team, the Water Emissaries, we still had to solve problems. We still had to create a vision and execute on it. And we had team-based problems. We had branding problems, opportunities, problems. We had all these things come up that every single team that's ever been formed in the history of mankind has identified and had to leap beyond. So I sort of use that context nearly every day when I'm working with startups and founders to hear, I'll recognize problems. And if I already had to identify those, maybe it's at a smaller scale, but if I've already had to identify those problems and solve them in my own organization, whether it's, tiny or large, that context is crucial when helping these startups. And during my interview process, I spoke to that tremendously. And surprisingly, that's taken for granted. A lot of interviewers are looking for that. They're looking for things that you can't really learn on the job. It's context building. So an organization or an opportunity like this, where you have the ability to directly impact and change the outcome of the team, of the vision, the opportunity to really influence the outcome, and to lead it yourself, and to fail forward and to succeed later on, that is crucial for any job opportunity. Like critical thinking, problem solving, pivoting, all of those things are things that I spoke to in my job application. This position I went for, it's within the associate development program at Silicon Valley Bank. They work with startups a lot. It's a really competitive program. They have like a 1% acceptance rate. And so people just drop off, even though, they may be coming from great schools. They haven't built that problem solving, context within their last few years. And that's crucial. So I would say the number one thing to take away from this experience is taking risks on trying to solve a problem and trying new things to solve a problem and making a tangible impact, whether that is boots on the ground doing a volunteer trip abroad or somewhere in America, or a big social media awareness campaign, or a big activation where you get some donations from organizations, that sort of thing. All of those things will have a direct impact on how you're able to speak to your experience in job interviews later on. And it also has a great impact on the world. The whole reason why we all join an organization like this is to change the world in our small way. And to be able to accomplish those two things is pretty unique and should not be taken for granted. So yeah, I'd be happy to answer more questions and that sort of thing too.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, great.
No worries.
Who's got the first question?
Yeah, I had a question about, so I'm kind of planning on getting into agricultural technology and working with farmers who may not necessarily be like conservation activists or have conservation in mind when they're, running their farms, I guess. And I feel like it's kind of a similar situation where you have international experience to how did you kind of get your points across that these values are important to, say, a country or people that don't necessarily have the means or the education to be kind of conscious about water, and so that you don't necessarily go in and start a project and then the second you leave they kind of just let it dissolve kind of thing. So I was just wondering your input on that.
I could take that on. I'm sure Stuart or Madeline might have things to speak to as well, but I think that's a great question. And I think the solution to your problem is that you have to include them in on the solution. You have to identify problems not from your own point of view, but from their point of view, because otherwise, as much as you think it's great, they have to see it through their lens and their values. It's just, any problem that you see as valuable, it may be totally valuable to them, but it doesn't matter. They have to see it from their perspective as well. So I would say, just speaking from my own experience, bringing them in on the process, problem solving process. I mean, they may say no right away. So you've got to come up with an ability to speak, to frame the issue within their space and their language and their values. And that takes research just on who it is, if it's an organization or farmers, people in agriculture that may not typically value the same things you value, using their language to frame the issue, and sort of going from there. It's a kind of this is a total sidetrack, but this famous linguistics professor at Berkeley who has a lot of books about framing, and sort of, it's not manipulating, but letting people see the issue from their perspective by using their language and their values to highlight the issues and highlight the solutions, more importantly. So I would say bringing them in by speaking their language and asking them what they value from this and what could be better, and then showing them firsthand. You could use all these rosy words and try and articulate the best you can, but showing someone is so much better. And it just depends on the situation, but putting the ball in their court and putting it in their arena, that helps tremendously, in my opinion. Does that answer your question, Ben?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries.
And Ben, that gets right back to the session we had on empathy, right? And being empathic of others. And as Cade said, the key in the developing world is that when white people come to them and think we know the answers or try to give them the answers, it's really, one, disrespectful, and two, it's not honoring them and it's not empowering them. So what's critical in the developing world is to, as Cade said, look at it from their perspective, step into their shoes, and then to give them the information and power and resources they need so they can activate what is required in their local community. It also relates to their own tradition, their own culture, their own economics, their own politics, everything that is just local to them. And you, I think, will be highly surprised that new ideas are more readily probably accepted there than they are here, because they don't have the resources and they don't have as much as we have. So I think it's probably a much higher likelihood of them adopting new practices than you would see here in the US.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I should, just to go off that, I think that's a great point that Stuart brought up. Let me give an example through the context of third world countries or communities that are just haven't had the same opportunity or have been succumbed to circumstance that's just different than what we've experienced. So when I went to Cambodia, I had this our first big international trip was to Cambodia in my school, and we got connected with this all-girls school in Kep, Cambodia. It's a really rural part of Cambodia, very impoverished, and not a lot of opportunity for young girls in the area. And the initial process began of communicating with those folks at the school and seeing what they needed as administrators and as teachers, what they needed from us. But the next step, we knew we had to go further because we were just getting one perspective. So we were able to get connected with the parents in the communities and those folks that were able to, it depended on access. There was a language barrier and cultural barriers, but we were able to get connected through some kind folks that worked at the school with parents there. We handed out surveys and just really asked, like, what do you need? What do you want for your family? What do you need? What are you missing from this experience? And what can we do? And so we had 0% of the problem identifying in this project. It was not on us to come up with the solutions. But what we did was say, what are the problems? And maybe what are possible solutions? But we focused more on the problems. And so they said, one major thing that we didn't hear about before was a lack of water access, which connects directly to Water Emissaries. Everyone was basically saying, yeah, I'd love to send my daughter to school, but we need her here. We need her helping with the farm, and we need her collecting water so that we can grow crops to sell in the capital city to feed our family. And so, long story short, we use that information to find these really inexpensive water catchment systems. And so we were installing these water catchment storage systems, and that had that secondary effect of revitalizing that local economy, something that is easy and sustainable, longstanding to use. That, like you said, Ben, we weren't going in and saying, hey, use all this technology that you're not really cool with or you didn't want anyway, and we leave and they just toss it to the wayside. So we worked a lot with the communities directly. And then something that we did was we made a deal with the school to say, we've got this great donation from the Rotary Club. And it was basically, we will provide a water catchment storage system for every single family that sends their daughter through the school. And so that incentivized the communities, the family members within the community to send their daughter to school. And that takes care of the education issue somewhat. It's a work in progress. That also gives them the freedom to send their daughter to school because now they have an ability to store more water and their daughter has more free time. So I think it's a process. You can still ideate, you can still brainstorm, but you present these solutions to the communities to make sure it's something that they're actually going to use, and also make sure that it's sustainable after you leave in those sort of projects, of course. But yeah, no, it's there. I think there's a lot of great academic literature and a lot of great books on what Stuart was speaking to. people coming in on these volunteer trips, all these aspirations, but they may be focused more on taking photos with those kids in the communities, all these new kids, and saying, hey, I volunteered here, but did you like really make an impact? And a lot of times, unfortunately, they don't. They're focused on the wrong things. So I recommend you look into that sort of literature as well. I think we might have lost Madeline.
Yeah, Madeline accidentally got logged out, but she's going to come back in. But if you guys want to continue asking questions, feel free to do that.
Yeah, who's next?
Yeah, I kind of, or Catherine, you can go actually.
Are you sure? Sorry. It
No,
was
it's
just
fine.
because it's kind of in line with what you were just talking about. So thank you so much for being here and talking with us. Can you tell me like a little bit more how it got started in Cambodia?
Yeah. So this was after before I, my first trip was to Puerto Rico. This was with this club that I started at my school called the Society of Global Citizens. It's a really dorky name, but the goal was to create, fundraise for, and then actually execute on global service learning projects. And so basically I started marketing this, branding this, and trying to take a step back here to show how it happened. I got the word out, basically. I was able to, put posters up everywhere. I talked in like every classroom. I just said, I think this is something you're going to want to do. And this is something that everyone that joins the club now has the ability to really deeply impact the outcome and where we go and what we do and what direction this whole process goes in. Anyway, so we were able to get we had 50 full-time members that joined, and there was just all this excitement. And right as that process was happening, as I was, knocking on, classroom doors, trying to get fundraising while all these people were joining, the hurricanes hit in Puerto Rico. I don't know if you remember Hurricanes Maria and Irma in November 2018 hit and just devastated the island. The whole energy infrastructure of the island failed. And, the federal government in the US was, negligent and acted inappropriately and wasn't providing the resources that they crucially needed. And so we knew that we wanted to do something about it. We didn't know how. And so we just started reaching out to organizations that we saw had a hand in Puerto Rico and were doing things. And it was all very disorganized because it was an emergency. And you don't really have the time to set up an online infrastructure to say, hey, for all you American students, we're doing these things. It's like, no, they're focused on, hands in the mud, feet on the ground. So anyway, we started to initiate that process, and it just took me and some of my club members asking for fundraising from people in our community and just knocking on a billion doors. I was primarily focused on administrators within our school. So because they had these budgets set aside for sort of project-based initiatives. And so, my club, let's say at the time, had 50 students, and this will get to Cambodia. It's really the same thing, but different area, and I could speak to that. But we had 50 club members around, right? And so let's say we had 10 or 5 of those club members were in the School of Business. They were all business majors or econ or whatever. So I would go to the School of Business dean and say, hey, 10% of our club members are in your school, and they are helping lead this project to Puerto Rico. And it can apply to your school with X, Y, and Z. And I'd come up with ways that it connects to business, and not fake, but real tangible ways it can help them in that education and in that growth. And I would request funding and say, hey, the School of Engineering just donated to $2,500. What are you going to do? They only had 3 members that were in club members that were in their school. What can you provide? And it was this kind of thing that they all just started putting money down. And they also saw the value. It really had to do with the true merit of the project. If it's not a really crisp, really well thought through process, then people are going to see that, and they're not going to pledge or be a part of it. So anyway, we had a lot of allies at the school that we were able to build by showing the value of the project. And so after we went through that process, one of the faculty members at the school said, hey, I know you're going to Puerto Rico, but one of the older faculty members retired from the school. He is helping lead this all-girls school in Cambodia, and it'd be really great for this and that. You get the idea. During that process, one of the fundraising events we had, it was mainly an awareness event, was Genocide Awareness Day. And those of you might know that there's the Khmer Rouge genocide in Cambodia in the 70s. Pol Pot was this very he rose to power like super quickly and just had this just horrible genocide and history take over the country. And because it was so recent, there are survivors that made it to America or different areas of the world that tell these really profound stories about their experiences and what happened. And so anyway, we were already putting on the genocide awareness events. We thought maybe there's a way to connect all of this together. So we had this amazing author who had survived the Cambodian genocide. She saw her whole family. She lost her whole family. Was just a girl at the time, and now she's this author and speaker. She spoke at this event, and we got her help to get the word out about this possible trip to Cambodia at this all-girls school. She was a huge advocate for it as a young girl that grew up in Cambodia, now just had seen that whole process through. We had advocates. We had a megaphone of this really well-known speaker saying, you should take a look at this. Donate towards this project, be a part of it, and speaking from her personal experiences. So anyway, it just kind of came together in like 1 week because, it was an easy decision to commit the next trip to Cambodia, because it was like an all-girls school in a country that has historically not treated girls the same way, girls and women the same way, not given them the same opportunities as their brothers or fathers or uncles, that sort of thing. An all-girls school in a really rural part of impoverished country, one of which that has a really prolific recent historic event like a genocide that we can all learn about and spread awareness about. It was an easy decision. So anyway, we went through that process, and it was just a lot of fundraising. Yeah. Did I answer your question, Catherine? That was like the longest answer. Sorry.
Yeah, that was really interesting. So thank you so much. And Matthew, sorry I cut you off.
No, you're totally fine. Honestly, it answered my question too. I was just going to ask about fundraising for your club. I just joined a club that is working to fundraise right now to implement a water catchment system in Rwanda. So I was just curious. Yeah, so I was just curious, like, because I just joined and I'm trying to help them fundraise, and I don't know what I'm doing. So I was just wondering, like, what you guys did.
I can speak to that more. Yeah.
Yeah. So
for both trips, I mean, we raised like almost $100,000 for just 2 trips, and among other things. And to be honest, I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never even been in a club before that. But I knew that the message was right. I knew that like what we were doing was truly deeply valuable. And so water, that's awesome. Water catch systems in Rwanda. Yeah. So I connected with leaders in the community that I knew way more about it than I do, and had way larger networks than I did. And I told them my story, and it's all about making that connection. And so going into every single meeting, I would just meet with like the biggest person I could meet with in a specific, like whether it was at the school, like I said, the deans, the chancellor, the president, or, Rotary is a huge, if you're not doing Rotary, you're doing it wrong. Connecting with people at Rotary, or local business leaders that have a lot of money to spend, or they're philanthropic, that sort of thing. You meet with the top dog, and in my opinion, that's how I like to do it. And you give them your vision and you tie them in. And so you do a little research. Let's say it's I already gave the dean example, but let's say it's a Rotary member, and the person you're meeting with has a background, maybe from a specific country, or working in a specific business, or with a volunteer group, or maybe, who knows. You research it and you make that connection. You bring them into your mission. Because otherwise, why are you going to them specifically? You're just trying to get money. You need to bring them into your mission and really do it honestly. So, I would need more details on, water catchment systems in Rwanda, where you're going in Rwanda or what it looks like. But you make that connection with people really personal, and you ask them how they see it. You try not to lecture to them and shove it down their throat, but instead listen to them, ask them questions and bring them in. And yeah, I would say just make it crisp and don't be afraid to fail. Like in my specific, very small experience with Puerto Rico and Cambodia and, et cetera, it was immediately like everyone was like, no, that's not going to work. We're not sending 18-year-old, college students to a third world country where, with one faculty advisor for 2 weeks, like spending $60,000. Like, we're not doing that. It's too risky. So like the typical story, but it was true. Like 6 people said that before I met the one guy that helped me make it happen. And that's all it took. So it kind of fueled me too. If you let those sort of experiences fuel you, I'm sure Stuart can speak to this too. Early in his career, the not letting people not seeing the vision, not letting that deter you whatsoever, but like light the fire and catalyze you to keep going, so that you'll know people will see the vision eventually. Yeah. Stuart, did you have any experiences like that?
Well, great answer, Cade, because the point is that every no is just an opportunity for a yes. And just because it hasn't been done before, as Cade said, should inspire you to say, it's crazy it hasn't been done before. I know it can and will be done, and you just go do it. And that is really the key to us creating the world in which we envision. As Gandhi said, may you be the change you wish to see in the world. Whatever you can imagine you doing, there are no limits. You can do it. And so you just go for it, and mistakes are part of the process. Failure is required as a stepping stone to success. Whether it was Bezos or Elon or Zuckerberg, the number of failures, you ask those guys how many failures they've had, it'll blow your mind. But they never gave up, is what, as Cade said. And the other thing that Cade said that's really critical is pivoting. The number one problem and failure rate for entrepreneurs in particular is that they're so stuck in their way, and they think they know the right way and this is it. And when you get so narrow-minded that you think you know the answer instead of being open and being curious. And even though my company's name's Mindful, I'm actually looking to change it now to Mindless, because we need to be mindless. We need to get out of our minds. We need to be curious. We need to be unknowing. And in that, we can create everything from that vantage point. Whereas if you know the answers and you know you're right, you will be humbled deeply.
Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, the pivoting thing I picked up from Stuart, and it also happened just naturally. Like one last example of pivoting was that first Puerto Rico trip. Like I said, so many people were saying no, and to the point where I thought we had full funding. We had a few crucial organizations that said, we will fund you as long as this and this and that happens. And then we had a few people in our legal department of our school that just wanted to shoot it down because it seemed really risky. At the time, Puerto Rico didn't even have electricity throughout most of the island. It was like, no, we're not doing that. We're not sending students there. We were told that we lost all our funding opportunities, because we were going through, doesn't matter, but X, Y, and Z organization staying in this part of the island. And it was like, yep, that's it. You lost the funding, whatever, $45,000, whatever it was. Sorry, maybe next time. And the next week we were working with a different organization. We pivoted. We were, all the reasons that they gave, we were checking off to say, no, okay, we changed that. And a few weeks later, we had the trip fully funded, and we went on it, 6 months later. So it's pivoting. It's not just, in businesses, it's in maybe even more so because it's people's donating money. Typically, right, is philanthropic organizations or social entrepreneurs have to pivot probably so much because of so many reasons. And it's even more important because it more likely affects lives. It's not just, the bottom line of a business, but impacting people's lives. So pivoting is, I think, ever more important in that space. Yeah, I gotta, like Matt, I have to say, like, in my experience, finding the right people, the right mentors, people like Stuart, or other mentors that I've had in my life, people that have more knowledge and experience than you do, and not being afraid to say, like, what am I doing wrong? How can I make this better? And pivoting tremendous, like drastically, if necessary, to succeed. There's so many people out there willing to help. You just have to ask a billion questions and be willing to have people go, I don't really care. Like, no, it's not for me, or I don't think it's going to work. And because it sounds so cliche, but it's like, there's a reason why it's cliche. It's true. And you just have to deal with it. But when you find the right people, they are worth 5,000 people that said no, and more.
Thanks, you guys. That was really helpful.
Of course.
Any other burning question before we get on to World Toilet Day? Emily?
All right. So
come on, you always got something going on back there, girl.
Not today. Probably. I'm coming off of exam season, kind of wrecked. But I've learned a lot. Thank you so much to Cade.
Madeline and Caroline, do you guys have a question for Cade?
I don't, but I was going to say, if we want to use the last 10-ish minutes to discuss World Toilet Day, Cade, if you want to stay and sort of give input, you're more than welcome to, or if you have other plans, we can say goodbye to you now as well. But Emissaries, I'm not sure if you saw, we sent out an email earlier today just saying to sort of be brainstorming World Toilet Day ideas. If anybody has anything that they've been thinking about or wanted to share, we can start off a discussion with that. I know we've talked a little bit, but we haven't gone super in depth with it. So
I know you all have been busy with your midterms, so you haven't had a lot of, quote, free time, but just whether it's popcorn or otherwise, let's just talk about what creative ideas, and as Cade will tell you, I always will say to you, think about something that sounds absurd and crazy and completely unrealistic. That's the kind of things that we want to be doing. That's how we came up with We Give a Crap for World Toilet Day. I mean, that was, edgy, and that's what we want to be. We want to be edgy, especially with this topic, because as Cade said, most people just have no concept of it. And this is not just a third world issue. Something close to 20% of the homes in low-income communities, minority communities in America, don't have running water in their homes. It's just, it's unacceptable, and it's all solvable. And so the initial part is to educate people and have them understand these issues. And it's not just a third world issue, even though 2.5 billion people, over a third of the people or a third of people on the planet don't have this convenience. And there's something we can all do about it. And the other point is, you could always make it be like, about fear and it's bad and all the I'll call it the sticks versus the carrots. But I think that we need to be more uplifting and fun and playful with this. And so that's what I'd love for us to do for World Toilet Day, is do activations. I'm talking with some of our advisors about a specific group, maybe one or two that we might look to support and raise money for and help them for World Toilet Day, and they're funding their operations for the next year. So what crazy ideas, whatever, just the crazier, the better. What would you like to do? What can we do? What would bring the topic out? And how can we create Instagram and TikTok and other activities that will be fun?
So I'm not like super social media savvy, but I was thinking about something. So you know how you go on YouTube and you get like really random recommended videos sometimes, and they kind of go viral because everyone's bonded over how kind of like random it is. So I think a few weeks or even months ago, there was a really interesting like a 360 view video on YouTube about how someone with dementia might like how that might impact a daily process like grocery shopping. And those videos are really interesting. I don't know how they work. I'm not very tech savvy either. But they're basically kind of from a first person point of view, and you can like rotate your screen. And it's like you're rotating in there. I don't know if I'm explaining that super well, but I see some nods, which is promising. And this is partly inspired by that waste treatment facility site that I was supposed to go to for my major orientation, but I missed the bus. I thought it'd be cool if there was like a virtual tour type of thing of like a wastewater treatment facility or something like that. Or kind of like a guided virtual tour. I did that for a class when we were learning about gentrification in Detroit. So I was thinking something like that, maybe. I don't really know how I'd go about it, but I think it probably starts with like recording one, and then someone who is tech savvier than me will probably know how to make that into a video.
That's a really cool idea. We could also do it as a TikTok because you can make like 1 minute long videos now. So if we wanted to like do a tour of a water treatment facility or something like that and sort of like taking somebody through that or a similar situation, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, I mean, something that would be intense would be where we could get videos, whether it's from the web or from one of our sanitation groups, about what it's like being there. And so one of the big issues with sanitation now they're finding is, so once they build these toilets, what do they do with all the sludge? And it's become a problem. And what they're beginning to understand is they need to think of this holistically and system-wise. So not just thinking about, okay, how do we provide a toilet and place to defecate, but how do we then deal with that so it doesn't come into the water table and all the other issues. So they're now looking at technologies and ways to take that waste and pelletize it to make it be fertilizer, fuel, you name it. And I mean, I've seen it, I just turns my stomach and throat just thinking about these people that are employed to go into these sewage pits and slosh the stuff out. And it's just, I mean, it's shitty. And I mean, you know, if we wanted to, we could show what it's like, which I mean, I don't know whether we would do that, but that's extreme, that's for sure. But I love your idea, Emily, of us doing something showing, yes, whether it's a wastewater treatment plant or otherwise. We don't have to get as vulgar as showing the people that clean out the shit and you know, in the third world, but it's all a possibility.
I guess to bounce off of Emily's idea, like I know we have seen that chart where it's like the disparity between genders and the amount of time that it takes for them to get clean water. Like I guess a video showing the process of like the time it takes to walk to like whatever body of water that they have to go to and then walking back would be kind of like impactful in the same way. Yeah.
I really like that idea, and I feel like they can almost be like combined. I also was kind of through the presentation we just had, I was like, wow, well, how can we apply like design thinking or like the stuff we've learned to the brainstorming of this process? And something that I think I've really taken away from like everyone that's spoken to us is the importance of building empathy with like the direct specifics of an issue in order to address it, but also perhaps in order to like better educate about it. So I was like thinking, would it be interesting or feasible to like take like a specific case, like the one we just heard of like girls in Cambodia maybe not being able to go to school because they have to get water, and that's a decision their parents made, and making that like the scenario for the video, like kind of putting yourself in someone real's perspective.
Good idea.
That's a great idea. Even within the United States, because Stuart, you talked a lot about how like we don't really think about the fact that people don't have access to clean water in the US. And so going off of what you said, Julieta, about Cambodia and doing like a sort of first person point of view of somebody going through that situation, but even making one of going through the situation in the United States, if you don't have running water in your house and, you know, having to walk to a 7-Eleven to be able to brush your teeth in the morning, or having to do things like that, that we don't think about when we have access to things like that, that sort of really impact the whole way that your day is going. So that could be something that we could do as well within the United States, or we could do like in and out of the US. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea of like telling a story, sort of like actually like going like into someone's life and like just showing what it's like, because I feel like when people see other people, it's like really impactful rather than just reading about it, or like reading an informational pamphlet, for instance, right? When they actually see someone experiencing it, they get the like they can able to empathize with them. So I like that idea that people have brought up about trying to like incorporate it into a story and informing people that way. I think it's really powerful.
Great. We could reach out to Lynn Foden at Thrive Networks and see if she may have personal story and a person that could maybe even do some stuff live, not even, you know, pre-recorded as well.
This is more of a bit of a kitschy idea, but in terms of like Instagram content and stuff like that, I was thinking about how, I don't know if anyone's seen the movie The Help, but one of the things that like sort of happens in the movie is that they're protesting like people of color not being able to use indoor bathrooms, and so they put all of their toilets on someone's front lawn. And so going off of it, photoshopping toilets either in front of global landmarks or in place of global landmarks on Instagram as like a way to sort of raise awareness. And obviously we need to be serious about it, but also something that's like a sort of eye-catching and just like you would see it on your feed, like replacing the Eiffel Tower or something with a toilet, I think would be kind of funny as a way to like make a statement about how important it is. So
great idea, Madeline. Love it. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, sorry. No, sorry, go on.
Gonna do. Go ahead, Emily.
Oh, okay. No, I'll be really quick. That just made me think of I guess it's like not as physical and not explicitly toilet related. But oh my God, what was I thinking? At my school, I was like part of the residential staff, and we went on strike, and we actually made profile pictures to put as like our Zoom, because you know we're all on online class, and we included little QR codes. So that was really helpful. I know a couple of friends told me that they actually saw a lot more like quote unquote electronic flyers than the physical ones we put up. So we could have a little QR code. I know, can you shape QR codes? Can you make like a toilet shaped QR code and have it linked to like those infographics and those photoshopped images?
Don't know if you can do that.
That's a really good idea, even because people are still in online school, or like I have a couple of online classes and a couple of in-person classes, but changing your Zoom profile photo to a QR code, the QR code, I can't speak. Caroline, do you have any ideas, or Catherine?
So this isn't an original idea. I had come across it on the internet, but there was some place that did like a squat challenge. So you know, kind of like the ice bucket challenge type thing. Like then you kind of like tag a friend to do it too. So it'd be like doing like squats, and I don't know. I was looking for it, and I'll see if I can find it. I'll share it in the chat. But they did it as a way to kind of fundraise, I believe.
Yeah, if you can find it and share it to help us get a little bit more insights.
Oh, I thought of something else. So a few years back, I don't really see it as much anymore, but there is a really popular Facebook page called Humans of New York. And this past summer, I worked in New York, and a lot of things stood out to me because it's New York, but one of the most glaring thing was like the lack of toilets. I actually compensated by just drinking like less water, which was not good. It was the summer. Please stay hydrated. And I've actually seen the lack of toilets as contextualized as a public health issue. It's been kind of brought up as an example of like intentional design choices by the city to make it inhabitable or hostile to homeless people, which is, I mean, in my opinion, that's also a public health issue. So maybe doing like a kind of miniature version of Humans of New York and having a little photo campaign, talking to people who are directly impacted by the lack of publicly accessible toilets, because a lot of them are stuck in like very fancy places like the Hyatt or like, hotels, corporations. And I think that could be really compelling.
Sounds fun.
Thank you, Cade.
Thanks, Cade. Hey, Cade, personally, if you want to reach out to me for you and I to have time together to catch up sometime this week, let me know, and I'd be happy to do that and look forward to have more time together. And thank you.
Absolutely. Of course. Happy to do it. Thank you, Stuart. Thank you, everybody. See you guys.
Okay, well, so we've got a lot of ideas out there. Now we need to integrate them and decide whether we want to do one or two, or whether we want to do more, and how we can do this. And it's not about, time, of course. It's about how do we do this to be effective and quick and empower others to be part of this. So it's not us having to do all this work. The whole point is how do we get the message out to many more and have them become the messengers as well. So even though World Toilet Day is, I think, November 19th, that we need to prepare for it and lead up to it and start doing activations and education beforehand. So on the day, we can have a lot more people involved and part of the community and beyond just us.
What we can do if people have time tonight to stay, we could sort of break things down and sort of pick, or we could send out an email with options or maybe a poll of what we've talked about and then go from there, because there are a lot of different ideas that we discussed. I don't know if people have preferences about it, and then sort of going there in terms of if people want to be really engaged with creating campaign content, or what people would like to do or have an interest in, if anyone has thoughts.
Yeah, if we have time, let's spend another 5 or 10 minutes just to talk about this now so we can get some traction and take some next steps together.
Is there anything that anybody is gravitating towards or would want to sort of work actively on, participate in?
I really like the idea of like a day in the life type video, especially like in the United States, just to really highlight that. So I feel like I don't know, I just really like that idea personally.
I really like Madeline's photoshopping toilets one. And I think just even on the fly, if there's like a hashtag, people could like share photos of like common, I guess like toilet problems, like not having enough toilets. Or I know another really big one is like obscenely long line for toilets, especially for women's bathrooms, which is also a really interesting design choice.
Yeah, I feel like you could reach a lot of people with making it like a fun, like sort of, and it's not a lighthearted issue, but making it easy to like for people to share, like with Madeline's idea. So I think I like that a lot too. And I don't know if we can incorporate like some sort of storytelling, like if you find the post, maybe there's some like link or something to find like a video where you can get further information. Maybe you can kind of incorporate that. I'm not so sure though.
Yeah, as you say that, Matt, I think about, could we bring in something where we get people to share photos or images of whether it's the location of the toilet that they use, or the toilet they wish was there that they isn't there, that needs to be there, or whatever other images of just toilets that would be fun and engaging and would get other people to want to participate and send in their photo or their image. Well, maybe we could do both of those projects. We could do one of a day in the life of someone and follow them. And then we could also do the toilet images and look how we can activate both of those.
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea to do both. And it's a good way. I think the images thing is a good way to get other people involved in actually doing something, kind of like a call to action. So instead of just like watching, like the video is good too, but like instead of just watching it and then kind of like going on about your day and forgetting, it's like they start posting pictures and they keep up with the hashtag and stuff like that. I think that'd be really cool.
Okay, so why don't we have both of those as programs that we will activate, and then we just have to now put together a plan and timeline and what we're going to do, and just start bringing some content forward that we can begin to share. I think I can get Didier to help us with this. I know Madeline, you're don't have a lot of bandwidth, so Didier, who was originally an intern that started working with us, who was also involved in the emissaries early on, can help us with some of this, so we can get some resources from him, Madeline, to help us.
Okay, awesome. Sounds good.
And are we like kind of because I'd like to be able to contribute content or see what ways I can help in that process, or like see what that process is like. Can you guys talk to that a little bit?
So what we could do is either like set up a call, another sort of follow-up call going more in depth about the planning for things and what we're going to do. And then people that are interested in participating can join that and sort of break things down more depending on what you want to contribute and how much you want to contribute. Otherwise, we can send out email updates and start an email thread with Didier and everybody. Yeah, it depends on the level of involvement that people are interested in and sort of what you'd like to contribute. But definitely everybody that wants to be involved, we would obviously love for you to be involved with.
I'll be so bold to say that I think when the program formally ends, that this can be a way to connect us and stay connected and continue through World Toilet Day. So maybe we just bring it down to once a week, and maybe instead of an hour, it's only half an hour, or shorter time frame. And
we can also go off that we can also look at changing the time, because I know that people that are in California, this is at a weird time and it's been difficult planning with everybody. So we can work on doing a different time if you're interested. Sorry, I just wanted to say that before I forget, because I know we've talked about that.
Yeah, that's good. So I see Julietta shaking her head yes. Good. Catherine, thumbs up. Matthew smiling. He's got his thumbs up. Okay. Ben's smiling too. Sounds like we're pretty good. Emily, you got your you're already doing it. Good job, Emily. Chris, are you there? Okay. Good stuff. Wonderful. Well, thank you. I have some other ideas I'm pondering, which I will share as well, that could just be fun for us and engaging for us. So as I get a little more clarity on them, I'll share them as well. So the Thursday coming up, we're having a fair with some companies and NGOs that I think you'll be eager to connect with and see how you might be able to have some type of engagement with them. And once again, if you can just send real quickly to us today, if possible, no later than tomorrow, just your major and any areas of interest that you've got of internship or job, so we can share that with them. That would be most helpful for them and therefore you. And then we want to do a wrap up next Monday, just for us all to be together. There'll be no speaker, just for us all to be together and talk about the program, positives, negatives, what you want to improve, how you can give us some insights about how we'll look at structuring next year's program, and any ways that we can continue to be involved together, which clearly World Toilet Day is one of those. So we think that's a good way for us to wrap things up and create our next steps forward together. Good, so everybody's game for that next Monday? Excellent.
Yeah.
Good stuff. And just so you know, the advisors that have been part of this have really enjoyed interacting with you. It's been inspirational for them and motivating for them and hopeful. And they're all eager to support you in any way they can going forward, as are most of the other well advisors we have. So there's a wealth of resources we have in that community that if you go on the website for waterino.com and you look at the well and you see someone there from Siemens or whatever it is, either let us know and we'll make a personal introduction, or if you want to reach out to them directly, they're all there as a resource and to help you. Good. Okay, well, we're off.
Also, join the Facebook group if you haven't yet. We sent out the link a couple of times, but that's a really good way to send like updates without things getting lost in your inbox and staying in contact with people too. So
maybe I'll get a Facebook account just so I could participate in the group.
Oh boy,
we can also do like a group me if people want to. I know I just did Facebook because that's like what most like for college I had to do for a lot of things, but if people if like group me, or I don't know what else, LinkedIn, yeah, we can do a LinkedIn group. We also, I don't know if we talked about social media, but we have Water Emissaries as the Instagram account, and we'll get in touch with everybody there. We can set up something to make sure everyone's all in touch. So
yeah, sounds good.
Lovely.
All right.
Fantastic. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Thank you.